Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of The Man Tracks. I'm JJ.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is the place where we go to get away from all the things that have a point. The internet has crazy stories, and we're here to tell you about them because we think that's fun. I have no business or no like.
You have no business.
I have no business. No, none. No like housekeeping or anything.
Just leave that.
I should just be done. Yeah. As you can tell from our lovely tenor of our voices, we're recording in the morning because...
Well, and I'm also getting over sickness, so my voice is pretty weak right now.
Yeah, we're kind of just all over. But we'll power through because we have fantastic stories to share. Are you ready to approach the news desk?
My stories aren't that fantastic.
Yes, they are. Pump them up.
Well, and my first story is, it's more of just like a blurb. Like, it's like 2 paragraphs.
Okay.
So, in England, a gardener grew an onion that was almost 20 pounds.
Whoa.
It's huge. So, a Guernsey gardener took his almost 20-pound onion to an England flower show where they believe it is now holding the new world record.
Biggest onion.
So, apparently there's a Harrogate Autumn Flower Show. And this man brought his 19.77 pound onion, which outweighed the previous world record of an 18.68 pound onion.
Such a big onion. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Onions are like a tuber, right? They grow underground, and so you just pull, and you just pull and pull and pull. That would have been so hard to get out of the ground.
Well, it's almost 20 pounds, and it was... it's on display at this flower show in the edible pavilion.
That's awesome.
Along other giant vegetables like cabbage, cucumber, and carrot. But it's still awaiting its status to be reviewed by the Guinness World Records.
Oh, they got to have somebody come check it out.
So, yeah, huge onion.
Wow, 20 pounds. That is, I mean, I've never heard of anything even close to that, you know?
How do you grow a 20-pound onion? That's my question. I've grown some huge zucchini, but like, how do you grow a 20-pound onion?
See, and that's the part where it's like, it's not like you pick it off the tree or the vine or whatever. It's down in the ground, so you gotta like get that out of the ground. I would be afraid to break it in half while pulling, you know?
That's such an interesting thing. So yeah, that's my first story.
I love
Very
it.
short. Not so sweet.
I have 2 goofy stories. I'm actually pretty excited about these. Cascades of red wine flood a city streets in Portugal after huge tanks rupture.
Oh.
It literally, there's pictures, I'll show you. It floods the entire street. It's a red river of wine that like literally floods the entire street.
How do they clean that up?
Very slowly. There's so much surplus red wine in Portugal, it's flooding the streets.
Oh.
Okay, so roughly 2.2 million liters, which is 581,000 gallons,
Oh my God.
poured out of 2 burst tanks at a distillery on Sunday. The local paper mentioned. A viral video from the scene shows a literal river of wine coursing down a hilly street, sluicing over its curbs.
Oh, can you imagine the mess?
Yeah, 2 tanks ruptured. So the company issued a statement saying that it profoundly laments the incident, pledging to bear the cost of the cleanup. So there's this little town where 581,000 gallons of wine went rushing down the streets. Nobody was hurt by the torrent of wine, but it did reportedly flood at least 1 cellar. Can you imagine if your cellar got...
There's a whole new meaning to the term wine cellar. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
that's good.
That's awful though. Can you imagine the loss that company had to take on that?
Yes. Local officials are now working to repair the damage done and also to prevent the alcohol liquid from affecting local farms, vineyards, and water supplies.
Yeah.
Like that much wine, it's going to mess with stuff. It gets into the ground because it doesn't just flow down the streets where it just keeps moving, but into the soil, right?
Yeah.
And the people's yards
100%.
and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
The large amount of wine was being stored at the distillery through the government's crisis distillation program, which aims to use incentive funds to remove a glut of wine from the market pipeline before this year's harvest. It was slated to be converted into alcohol. So apparently there is a massive surplus of wine in major wine producers. People are not buying wine anymore.
That makes sense.
It has plummeted over the pandemic. Portugal is the world's highest wine consumption rate per capita, but these are difficult times for wine producers. Consumption is down. It's in free fall, down 34% in the European Union, citing inflation and other pressures. Large countries such as France and Germany are also seeing double-digit declines.
Wow.
So people just aren't buying as much wine, so they have so much wine, and so the government buys it. They're like, okay, we'll buy your wine so your business doesn't go out, and we'll just get rid of it and keep it out of the market, so you just hold on to it. They do the same thing with like farmer subsidies in America, you know?
Yeah.
They say that the distillery says that they're investigating the cause of the breach that sent the wine cascading down the town streets. They also thanked local firefighters who were able to corral some of the wine and take it to a treatment plant, according to local reports. You gotta throw it away.
Treating the wine for
Yeah, don't treat the wine. Don't try and fix it. Put it away. Throw it away.
Oh my gosh.
You don't. No.
I'm imagining that visual. It's like a weird horror movie.
It does. It's like red. It looks like it's too like runny and liquidy to be like, oh no, it's blood or anything like that.
No, that makes sense.
But it is definitely red liquid in huge amounts.
I'm just imagining the mess. Like
the sticky mess.
Well, and like imagine as it starts to like dry out in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
That smell of like old fermented.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of water they're going to need to hose down the roads and
absolutely
all their stuff.
That sounds awful.
Because, like, this video gives me the sense that it's like, oh, it broke out of a tank up at the top of the hill and then it ran down the street. But it ran down the whole hillside, you know? And so the street's probably easy enough to wash off. The next time it rains, you know, it'll wash away all the sticky. But, like, your house and your yard and your cellar.
Oh, yeah. That's a weird insurance claim to file.
It is nice that the company was like, "Oh, sorry, we'll pay for cleanup," and hopefully, and nobody got hurt, you know. So that part's good.
That is good.
I really wonder what the effect of a bunch of alcohol being poured. What does that do to the environment, like to animals and stuff? Yeah. Got a bunch of drunk.
I wonder how many studies have even been done on something.
It's so strange, you know,
because it's so obscure and like rare.
A river of wine floods out of a distillery in Portugal. Fascinating.
It doesn't sound as good as the land flowing with milk and honey, but, you know.
Flowing with sticky red wine.
So my next story is bizarre. It says, a human skull found in a Goodwill donation box in Arizona, but police say it's not a link to any crime. So apparently in Goodyear, Arizona, employees were going through donations.
There's a place called Goodyear? That's like the name of the town? Okay.
Yep. And Goodwill employees were going through donations, and they found a human skull in one of their donation boxes. So they called the police. Ugh. The officers responded to possession of the skull. They, reported they transported it back to the medical examiner's office, and they confirmed that it was a real human skull.
Wow!
But it seems like it's historic and has no forensic significance, and there seems to be no association with any kind of crime.
Wow.
So it's not clear who donated the skull and why. But store employees were not returning calls about all the inquiries.
Didn't we do a story a long time ago about a guy who was like selling body parts and stuff?
Maybe.
I feel like I remember that. Like he was doing something and he was like mailing them to people or something like in jars or bones or something. I can't remember.
Something weird like that.
Yeah.
But
that was a crime. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
But like I found a human skull.
Like a real human skull. Like why would you donate that to Goodwill? Like
I'm saying like some people want like authentic, I'm creating my Edgar Allan Poe desk and so I want to make a little skull paperweight. That is, oh my gosh.
I don't know. It doesn't appeal to me. So.
That's funny though. I think if I was the employee, I'd go, look, there's a skull. Cool. And then I'd put it on the shelf. Like I wouldn't think twice to like, oh, I should report this. That wouldn't like cross my mind.
It would just be weird to like be going through stuff and be like, oh, this looks real.
Yep.
Like,
bizarre. And I would just kind of go, okay.
Uh-huh. You'd just immediately put it on the shelf.
I would. I'd be like, that's cool.
Okay, I'm throwing this away.
Well, and I guess I think of a skull that's like, it's not like bloody and it's not like, it's not like a severed head. It's a skull. It's all cleaned off. And I think skulls are a pretty ubiquitous Halloween decoration type thing. So I would be like, wow, this looks realistic. It would like never cross my mind that, oh, that's a real human skull. I would assume it's fake. Just a really good realistic fake, and I'd put it on the shelf without. Nice. That's where my brain would go, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually.
I would be the guy in a horror movie when the scary noise happens. I'd be like, "Huh, what was that?" And then I go back to watching TV. I would not notice.
You wouldn't even notice the noise.
Nope.
You'd just be so glued to the TV.
All right. UPI.com has for us a story of the Hambone Awards. Most unusual pet insurance claims of 2023.
Oh, okay.
So Nationwide is the number one provider of pet insurance in the country. And years ago, they started a tradition called the Hambone Awards.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Now, it's named that because there was a story of a dog that got trapped in a refrigerator, and he ate the Thanksgiving ham that was in there with him, right? He survived by eating the ham bone. And so ever since then, they created this thing where they review the weirdest insurance claims of stuff that happens to dogs or pets. It doesn't have to be dogs. And then people vote on them, and they choose the winner of the...
What does the winner get?
There's a little trophy. It's a black thing with it's a big ham bone on it. And then there's a donation. I think the winner gets like $10,000 or something, or a gift card or something. And then prizes 2 and 3 get like donations made in their honor or something like that.
Sure.
Insurance firm Nationwide announces finalists for its 2023 Hambone Award, which highlights the most unusual pet insurance claims of the year. Let's see. This year's finalists include Giles, a New York cat who was closed into a folding couch. Josie, a California dog who ran into a set of metal bleachers while chasing a ball. And Sunny, a Labrador who managed to shimmy his crate 5 feet across the room so that he could eat 3 phone charger cords.
Oh, that poor dog.
Now, one thing that's important to note is that all 12 finalists made full recoveries from their injuries.
Oh, that's good.
So some of them did get hurt. And because that's what I was reading. I was like, geez, this one, the dog gets hurt too. But it's like, no. I mean, yeah, of course, it's insurance claims. So bad things happen. But all of these stories end happily. That's the important part. All right. So I thought it would be fun to run through these because these are just hilarious. Aurora is a golden doodle who lives in Belmont, New Hampshire. She suffered a broken leg while furiously trying to extract her paw that got stuck in a snow-covered storm drain. Great. Ooh. Yeah, she got her paw stuck. Emergency surgery was needed to repair the bone. It's a really clever award from Nationwide. So what they do is they give you the whole story, and then they say, here's what Nationwide did. Like, here's how we covered the animal. And it really pumps up their coverage, and people are like, oh, I should get pet coverage too. Belle, a Jindo from Atlanta, Georgia, confronted a very large deer that had wandered into the family's backyard. Unfortunately, it was a male deer who had horns, and so they had a tussle with the big buck, only resulted in soft tissue damage and scratches.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Bernie, a mixed breed from Rescue, California, was tumbled by an ATV while on a Christmas Eve run. He got hit by an ATV. Not life-threatening, required significant care and recovery time. Giles is the kitty from New York who got smushed in the sofa when out-of-town visitors inadvertently closed the folding couch with Giles underneath. You know how you pull the couch out and there's like a gap there. And apparently I read the whole story. It was like, they said, check for the cat before you put the bed back. He likes to go in the couch. And they didn't check. And so they smushed him in there and he needed some care. Grayson, a Labrador retriever from College Station, took an unexpected jump off of a 36-foot high bridge and landed on a concrete embankment. No surgery was necessary, but he had some internal injuries that took him 2 months of rest to heal from.
Ouch.
Yeah, the dog, they were on a walk and he just jumped off the bridge. I don't know what he saw that caused him to leap for it.
Wow.
Yep. Jax was a snuggly pug from Las Vegas. He was recovering from a surgery, and he was all snuggled up under a blanket, and he suffered heat stroke underneath the blanket on his
Pug.
Yeah.
That makes sense, actually.
This is a little tiny doggy. So, Miko, a cat from New Orleans, enjoys his outdoor catio space. Oh boy. He took a 7-foot flying leap at a pair of doves that were starting a nest too close for his comfort. The home security camera showed him being bitten by the doves. The birds attacked him.
Of course they did.
Beyond the minor cut, he was not seriously harmed. Rolex, a green-cheeked connoisseur from Milton, Massachusetts, found himself in seemingly perfect perch atop an open door. The homeowner basically was a bird, and the homeowner shut the door on the bird, like while the bird was perched on.
Good owner.
It's one of those things where you accidentally step on the cat, or if the dog runs under your feet and you accidentally kick the dog, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You feel so bad. And then Sonny, a determined Labrador from California, who he was in a crate. They put him in the crate, and he made it bounce over to the wall.
Wow,
and
that's
then
determined.
Ate a bundle of electric cable.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, he had to undergo emergency procedure to clear the foreign objects from his system, and he has fully recovered. Apparently, he ate a lot of stuff, not just the wires, which was obviously the major concern, but there was other stuff there too. It's like, geez, he ate everything that he could get his little paws on.
Yuck.
Let's see. There are Hall of Fame for people who have won previous years.
Wow. This is so involved.
It's such a thing. Sorry, one more.
No, it's okay.
Oh, yeah. So this one, Bruin. So this is the 2021 Hambone winner. A Bruin, a 3-year-old German Shepherd from Stevenson, California, survived a 400-foot tumble into a canyon and 4 days alone while he was seriously injured. They were out at a canyon, and the dog got away from him. And then there were some park rangers who were trying to help, and the dog is afraid of men because of prior abuse.
Oh my
and
gosh.
so when the men were trying to help, the dog jumped off the canyon and went down slid 400 feet down, and then had to survive down there for 4 days until they caught him.
Oh my gosh,
It's
horrifying.
He's fine.
Okay.
Dog's okay. Everything's great. But yeah, he jumped off a steep cliff to flee from well-intentioned men. I thought that was a crazy story.
Wow, that is crazy.
Nationwide, you can find it on petinsurance.com/Hambone Award /hall-of-fame.
Wow.
There's so many. I only read this year's, but there's tons going back, and they've been doing it for
The people who can afford,
Yeah, yep. So this goes back years, at least 2018. No, they've been doing it for 9 years before that. So I think they've been doing it for almost 15 years.
Wow.
13 or 14 years. Hambone Award.
Never heard of it before. Never knew such a thing existed.
Closing your cat in a couch could win you an award.
It seems like something from a TV show.
Well, and I do want to mention that voting is still open for the Hambone Award. Voting is open through September 22nd, and winners will be announced. Wait, when does this episode come out? Oh, yeah, so the 22nd. So this episode will drop on the day that voting is done. So if you're listening on Friday, vote now.
Ask JJ who he voted for, because he voted for somebody.
Yeah, of course. I got it. I actually haven't yet, but I will. I got to pick one. The dog that got run over by the ATV, that was a family member that did it. They were like, oh, the dog got away. We got to go find him. And then they ran over the dog.
Oh, my gosh. That's awful.
Oh, my gosh. That's horrifying. I do think that the pug who overheated was really funny. The one who ran into the bleachers, it was just the dog was fetching and just smacked into the bleachers, and there was a sharp part and it poked the dog. And it was oh, poor dog.
Painful.
Yeah. Most of these, as I was reading, I was like, oh, that's a sad story too. Oh, wait, that's the whole point of the award. So that's all I got.
Let's reward you for your dog's injuries.
Well, okay. Are you ready for Sponsor Your Life?
I am. So last week we did a lot of fun family events. So I'm going to lump mine together, because we had not 2 days in a row, but a couple days where we did some fun stuff. It was a busy
weekend. It was crazy.
It was a very busy weekend. We had on Friday we went to the Saginaw Children's Zoo with the boys.
Yep.
They're getting ready to close the zoo for regular season
Yep.
hours.
Had to
end of
squeak in one more
September.
visit.
So we thought we'd get, one visit in. It was actually a really nice day. It was also a seniors event there. So
There were
it
old
was
people
our children
everywhere.
and lots of elderly folks everywhere. But it was a fun day. We got to let the kids ride the train and look at the animals, and it was a nice morning. Spend a couple hours there, come home, have lunch, and it was good. So that was fun. And then on Sunday we went apple picking with my family over in Charlotte at a place we've been going for the past 4 years, and that was fun. We had a good time apple picking and spending time with family and filling up on cider and donuts and all that good stuff. So it was good.
That's so good. I love our apple picking tradition.
It was really good.
Traditions. Yeah, it was one of those weekends where you got to the end of the weekend and I was like, "Oof, I need a weekend from my weekend."
Yeah, we were tired yesterday.
Oh, it was awesome. I got Friday. I got my step counts were well above average all weekend. Oh, but it was so good.
It was good.
Oh, and there was a party at church. Like we had a big celebration,
We did have a
fall
celebration.
comeback party.
It was a busy day.
It was great, but it was a lot. And pumpkin donuts. That's just another shout out.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna go more generic this week. We've had sickness in our house. It's been around for a while. I had a cough like a month ago, and that lingered for a few weeks. But now it's like walking through all the boys, and I don't think maybe one kid had a fever for like a half a day, but mostly
Liam had a small fever for a little bit, but
it wasn't a serious illness. It was just an annoying cough that walked through every kid.
it was an awful sore throat that led to coughing that just made everybody cranky.
Yeah, so sponsoring my life lately has been just tea. Just the miracle of tea. Hot water poured over a tea bag. That's all you need. If you want to add honey or lemon juice to really, really make it work on your throat, awesome. And hot tea is just so great, and it's so, so helpful. And we've been drinking it by the gallon around here.
Yeah, our kids have been.
Not all of them will drink it. We try, but
The younger, the only one of them won't. The other three will. So
and they like it, and that's so helpful because it's just with these minor illnesses, like you can go to the doctor and get some antibiotics or whatever you need, but it's like this is such
what we had was not antibiotic worthy, so it wasn't something that it's an unfortunate thing. It's very frustrating, but over the counter meds are just gonna manage the symptoms slightly for a few days. And
our kids are little and they're not supposed to have a whole bunch of stuff, so
we just don't. So we were doing lots of tea and pushing lots of tea, and it actually was helpful. So
that's why I've always used that as a remedy, even since I was a little kid, and in high school and college, it's like tea. So also, and I want to shout out to the specific. There is some, what's it called? Throat coat.
It's traditional medicine. It's what's it called? It's called traditional medicine or something.
That's the brand of the tea.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Herbal Traditions or something like that.
Yeah. It's a really, really helpful.
Yeah, the throat coat tea. It's very good.
It's not mentholated, but it's got
willow
something.
bark, echinacea, and
it's nice. It's good stuff.
Slippery elm. It
really does help.
Good herbs for your throat. Really good herbs for congestion and healing.
Well, and I mean, even if you don't have the special throat helping tea, just all tea is good for a sore throat. And so that's my shout out. It's been sponsoring my life because it's been helping everyone around me, including myself.
A couple boxes.
Yeah. All right. So that's been sponsoring my life today. All right. So what?
I said this month.
This month, this past couple of months. I'll be glad when we're done with the fall coughing season before we get into,
coughing season.
The winter. I'm so excited about this, actually. We have not, and I didn't come up with a cute name, but we haven't really talked about this on the podcast, but you and I are both kind of, I don't even know what you call it. We really like sci-fi that makes us think. So we're big fans of, you grew up with the Twilight Zone as a TV show. I didn't really grow up with it, but I've watched a lot with you.
The original Twilight Zone.
Right.
1950s,
really old school, on Freevee TV or whatever it is. But that kind of construct has been really fun. So what I thought let's start with, I read an article a long time ago talking about the difference between fantasy and sci-fi.
Sure.
And the argument was that Star Wars is fantasy, not sci-fi. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Star Wars is futuristic. Sci-fi is futuristic. So the thrust of the argument was that there was the difference between sci-fi and realistic. Sci-fi is not about being futuristic. It's about using technology or made up fictional scenarios to explore different topics, to explore philosophical or ethical conversations.
Sure.
Whereas fantasy is the pursuit of telling epic stories. And a lot of times it's like magic and dragons and stuff, but you can also use, futuristic stuff to tell epic stories. Right. So, and the function of Star Wars is not to explore tricky ethical situations or to poke at social commentary or anything like that. It's just to
entertain,
tell an epic story. And actually, I found that very convincing. I was like, oh, you know what?
When you break it down,
it is more fantasy than sci-fi using that definition. I don't know if everybody subscribes to that.
So then would you call the Hunger Games sci-fi?
Maybe. Yeah.
It just seems to fit into that, like,
because there's so much commentary in the Hunger Games, and that's what I love about that. Like, it's
I like movies that have a commentary. I don't like just mindless action.
Yeah, I like all things. I'm all about the mind.
I hate action movies. I hate blind action movies.
I think if it looks cool, I'll probably still watch it. But I do appreciate something that makes me think as well. So what I thought we should do is, and I do want to find like a name for this, like the Twilight Corner or something.
No, that sounds like those Twilight movies. That's awful. Don't name it that.
Today we're gonna dive deep into New Moon and Team Edward.
No, please don't ever speak those names.
No. I wanted to talk about our favorite episodes of sci-fi and what it made us think of and that kind of stuff. And we can kind of review episodes and go into them because I think that's fascinating, and I think that's a piece of our relationship we haven't talked about at all on this show.
Okay.
All right. So, do you want to go first? Like, you want to tell us about your favorite episode of sci-fi? It doesn't have to be Twilight Zone, but it can be.
I mean, my favorite episode. So to be completely fair, like, we decided we would start watching through the Twilight Zone episodes, and I realized, like, some of the episodes that I remember, like, I watched them at different points in time or whatever, and maybe it used to be my favorite, but I have a lot of them that I like. I can't say that I've like watched them closely again where I can look back and be like, no, that one's my absolute favorite.
Sure, it doesn't have to be your favorite. Let's just talk about an episode.
When I was a kid, we used to watch it. They would have the Sci-Fi Channel on cable TV.
Yeah.
And the Sci-Fi Channel would always do a Twilight Zone marathon over New Year's.
Yep.
So from like, I don't know, like maybe 5 o'clock on New Year's Eve to like the end of the day on New Year's Day, they would just play Twilight Zone episodes on repeat
all the time. Yeah.
All day. Some years we'd be like getting ready for our, family New Year's party. We didn't really throw like a big blowout, and I never really went anywhere for New Year's, but it was like we'd have snacks, we'd have family over, and sometimes in the background we'd have like the Twilight Zone playing. So we watched a lot of Twilight Zone. But there's one episode that always stuck out to me, and it was the one about the woman whose face is in bandages the entire episode, and she's like in a hospital. And you see all the hospital staff coming and going, and they keep, meeting with her and trying to tell her,
and they talk about how hideous she is.
Right, she's hideous. She's awful. She, she just is. People scream when they look at her, and she's like, I just dream one day of
being normal,
not being, being normal, not being.
Why do people judge me?
Run away from.
Yeah.
And the irony of it all is that never see the faces of any of the hospital staff.
Nope.
It's always shrouded in darkness, or they don't show the camera.
It's clever camera work, yeah.
This woman's face is in bandages until the end of the movie, the end of the TV show, where they've tried to perform another surgery, and they're going to see if it took, because this is her like
it's a last chance,
5th or 6th time. 11th. That's
a big deal. Yeah, I remember that.
The 11th time that she's had surgery, and they remove the bandages, and then they show her face, and it didn't take, but she looks gorgeous.
Yeah, they're all horrified. They're like, "Oh my gosh, it didn't work."
She looks like a normal, like a model, like a normal person,
a normal lady.
And she's just sitting there in her hospital gown, like, "Oh no!" And she's feeling her face. She's like, "It didn't work." And then all of a sudden, they pan to the hospital staff, the doctor and the nurses,
and they're all
they're like, they have like oddly shaped mouths, and their noses are off to the side, and their eyes have these like
big heavy brows.
Heavy brows, but like big circles under their eyes and like really big wrinkles on their faces.
They kind of look like pig people.
A little bit. So they have like very intense features, and they're just like, oh, it's such a pity. She's never going to look like us. We're going to have, there's a place where you can go where we can send you away with people who look like you. And there's
in a ghetto.
Man who comes, they basically call it like a ghetto. And there's this man who comes in, and he's also normal looking.
Yep.
I say normal. That's such a awful term to use,
well, that's the whole point.
He's, generic person, but he's like, oh, there's people just like us. We can go together and all this stuff. And basically the end of the episode is like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Like, the normative look of, society is greatly dependent on, those who are kind of like in charge or the main people. And so it's just an interesting commentary. And I always kind of like the episode because it was just such a flip on what we expect, because normally the people who are different looking are the ones who want to, change the way they look, and the quote beautiful people are the norm.
And I feel like as much as we try to convince ourselves that our style is our style, no, I want this because I want this. Objectively, it's a pure desire. It's really just to fit by a desire to fit in, not even a desire to look good. Yeah. I want to look good as defined by my neighbors. Everybody else said this looks good, and so then I will do it. And it's amazing to me over my life, like when I was a teenager, I totally bought into no, this is me, this is my expression. But I just wanted to dress like my friends, right? Like that was the whole point. Was I only wore, for me it was like this punk kind of grunge emo phase of like black t-shirts and ripped jeans, saggy, baggy, ripped jeans. That was the style.
Saggy, baggy, ripped jeans.
That was my favorite band when I was in high school. No, but it was a desire to fit in. And as time has gone on, you think you're impervious to that. You're like, no, my style is my style. But as styles change, you find yourself attracted to different things. You're like, oh, I've seen that a lot. Maybe I want to wear those now, And then...
Yes, I am very well aware because of the 90s trend that's recurring right now, where I'm looking at stuff in stores and I'm like, you can't bring those shoes back. Those were awful in 1995. Why do people want to wear them again now? And all the teenagers are like, look at how fashionable I am. And we're all sitting there going, we lived through it. It wasn't fashionable. Just don't do it. But I do agree. I think a large part of it is just wanting to, be like everybody else so that we're not seen as different. But it's interesting. Like, I feel like there's like an extra level of it as Christians, because a lot of times, we have to be conscious of like why we're doing things or how we're doing things, or like, trying to go so far into the culture that we're not like recognizing like what we look like or what we do or how we act is not. It's not important to be defined, by the culture. It's not important to be accepted by the culture to a degree. Like, I'm all about like,
it's really,
you want to be quote accepted. You don't want to be that outcast that's like everybody thinks you're weird, so no one will listen to you. But at the same time, like, why do I owe it to them to, dress like them or be like that? I don't know.
I think there's a line. I think, there is a social acceptability thing of like trying to fit in, and that's the way we function as adults in a society. But at the same time, we do have this kind of, we let it control us, and we think the part that really irks me is that we think we are not being manipulated. Like we think
everyone is influenced, which is why social media is so overly prevalent with everyone. I don't conform to this society. Oh, but I have an Instagram and a Facebook and a TikTok, and it's like okay.
Yeah, no, you're getting formed.
It's ridiculous. So
it was a very interesting episode. I like it, and I like what it says about society and the desire to fit in, and what's ugly and what's beautiful, and that kind of leads me to So for me, I wanted to talk about another TV show that came out more recently that's very Twilight Zone-esque, and that's the TV show Black Mirror. So Black Mirror is a TV show on Netflix. I do want to give up a huge parental warning or a content warning or whatever.
This is not appropriate for children.
Oh my goodness, it's
TV
very rated R. Like Twilight Zone, they for the time was shocking and oh my gosh, that's crazy. But it was... The
most it got was maybe a little bit scary.
Yeah, it was bound by the limitations of public TV in the 60s, right? So that was not... There was hardly anything bad or even that scary. But Black Mirror, they really push the envelope on what you see, what you hear, and then the concepts. It still toys with your mental state. They give you dystopian scenarios that tease out different social commentaries and that kind of stuff. And I think about it all the time. That's what I think is sort of the element of good sci-fi, is when you finish it, if you're still thinking about it like days later, it's like, wow, that's such an interesting thing, or how that applies to this scenario. It's so much deeper than just what you saw on the screen. Mm-hmm. But Black Mirror is very intense and has a lot of really inappropriate stuff. Mm-hmm. But anyways, there was an episode, I think it was actually in the first season. There's a young man who wakes up in like a little cubicle, and he's wearing, I think he's wearing like all white, and everybody wears the same thing. And he wakes up, and his job seems to be, he gets on an exercise bike and he just pedals. He just like pedals his exercise bike all day long, and that's his job. And he's like creating energy for their society or something. And all day, every day, he has screens. Like there's a screen in front of him. The walls of his cubicle are made of screens. Like everything everywhere is screens, and there's content like different TV shows and whatnot constantly, and he can pick between them, but they're just always in his face all the time. He actually has to pay money to turn screens off to go to sleep, And in this world, everybody rides the exercise bikes unless you can become a content creator, unless you can get your own TV show. And to get your own TV show, you earn enough credits, and then you use those credits to put yourself out on the platform. And if I'm remembering right, there were like 3 judges or whatever, and you give them your pitch, and they bid on you how much they will pay you to be on the platform, and then you can make your own TV show, right? And in the midst of this, there's sort of like a love interest. There's a woman, and I don't remember, I think she's like on the exercise bike next to him or something, and he's very interested in her, and he's protective of her. I think they eat together and that kind of stuff. And he thinks of her all the time, and he wants to be with her, and he's on his exercise bike, and he's thinking about this woman. And then something bad happens. She ends up like going up to the auction block or whatever, and she's going to be sold, or her content will be bought, and she's going to, I think it's that she's going to be sold like into like maybe prostitution or something. Something really, really awful is going to happen to her. And so he's going to save the day. And he like, the climax is like he bursts into the studio in front of the judges, and he takes a shard of glass and holds it to his neck, and he has this whole big rant about how this whole society structure is wrong, and it's really, really intense. And the pivotal moment is when the judges, like, it looks like he's about to tear down the whole system, and then the judges start bidding on him. And he's holding the glass to his neck, and the judges start bidding on him for his content. And so then suddenly he is given a platform, and he's given an apartment, and he's very famous, and he makes these videos, and he takes the piece of glass and he like puts it at the end of the episode, if like fast forward a couple months, and he takes the piece of glass and he puts it in a little box, and it is his show now. Right? This big rebellion that he had where he was going to tear down the whole system, they just absorbed it into the system. And for me, that speaks a lot of outrage and riots and protests. When we protest against something, if a system is big enough, it can absorb the protests as a part of the system. Even the climate. So I think about it in the real world, even the climate change activists don't necessarily want to solve the problem, because then they'd be out of a job. And so you become a part of the system, and it makes, I think about it all the time, the way he's like, he puts this glass piece up against his neck, and he says all this super intense, angry, aggressive stuff. And it's like, like when I was a kid and a teenager, there was so much like angry anti-establishment music. You think about like Sum 41 or Nirvana, or these bands that were like, we're so angry. And it's like, yeah, and that anger made you fabulously wealthy in that system that you were railing against, And so I think about that episode all the time. And again, there was some content in there I didn't like, but the commentary was really fascinating. I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was interesting. I do remember looking back thinking Black Mirror, if I tried to watch it now, I probably would have a hard time getting past it, because there's a lot of inappropriate content in it that just I just don't tolerate inappropriate content. It doesn't sit well with me. I can't push past a lot of it. Oh, just get past this, not that big. It bothers me. So yeah, in some of it too, like even more than just like this is gross, this is inappropriate. Some of it, like it messes with your brain.
It does.
It's awful. So.
Well, and some of them are really, and that seems to be another feature of it, is that it's very bleak. You know, most of these dystopian, you know, they're exploring other concepts, and to do that, really, it can be sad. It can be really like, oh, that was horrifying, you know?
Yeah.
And the idea is that, oh, it's a commentary on whatever.
Don't watch it before bed, though, because you'll go to bed and be like, oh, my gosh, I was depressed, and then I had awful dreams, and just don't recommend.
Yeah, so I gotta find a good title for this, but it's fun to talk through the different episodes and what they tease out, the commentary on our culture and world. And that's a nerdy piece of who we are. And so it fits well in the Man Shreks. All right, are you ready to send us out with well, I should say thank you to whoever our theme song provider is, Lemon something.
Nice.
It would take me 2 seconds to look it up, but I just don't. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We love making this podcast. It's fun. We hope you enjoy listening. Are you ready to send us out with the Mom Joke of the Week?
What do you call a magician that loses his magic?
A magician who loses his magic. I don't know.
Ian.
I like that one. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.